I recently sold my condo in downtown Los Angeles for a good price after living there for the past 2 years. Of course, I was upset since I had a connection with that condo because it seemed like home. Yet, I had always been the person who preferred traveling. I never stayed in one place for a long time as I always wanted to explore new places. Though I took a break from this journey and remained in LA for 2 years. Considering that it was my hometown, I wanted to spend my time there for a while. I mean, who was I to blame? Los Angeles was always magical. These streets and lights were where I grew up. There, among others, I made some of my closest friends. I used to go and visit different places, but I always came back to LA once in a while to meet them. Life had always been unpredictable for me, and I found it uninteresting to stay in one place, since how could I possibly enjoy the beauty of other places? Although Los Angeles was a great place, I desired to explore more and more of the world. I wanted to see the splendor of different cultures of the world. Being an artist, I frequently strayed off to different locations in search of inspiration for my paintings. Of course, I was a goner for nature. I made the decision to start my journey of exploration again. My biggest dream was to travel and actually live in different places throughout the globe and capture their beauty in my paintings. I could say I was living my dream, which was extremely exciting. Whenever I told people about it, they used to say, "Why bother so much? You can do a world tour before settling in one place." To be honest, why not? I preferred to remain at each location and get a sense of what it was like to live there rather than take a tour. I told my friends about how I wanted my life to be, and they were more encouraging than I had thought, which made me beyond happy. I decided to put my condo on the market since I was having a shortage of properties. Luckily, I made a good profit on the sale, which lifted a lot of the burden. This time I had my eye on moving to Denver by October. I wanted to have an urban feel. I wanted to explore landmarks and everything else that enhanced the beauty of this city. The moving part was hectic, but I enjoyed it. I was ecstatic for a new beginning. Traveling had been my companion, so that was not a bother. I cleared out my remaining belongings for the new house, but realized I had a lot of extras. I wanted them gone as I knew I always found new things according to my tastes everywhere I went. So I placed an ad on Craigslist, taking offers so that everything must go by this specific date. I wanted to finish all the work before I could move out. I must have had the ad up for over a few days now, and I had a ton of buyers at the house picking up almost everything I had posted online a few days ago. I was so glad that the work was finishing up early. I almost sold everything except for some pieces that were mostly antique. I was hoping it would be sold soon because welcoming people and showing things off was a lot for me. Nonetheless, I was glad I could sell them at the price I wanted. As I was letting the last group of people out the door that day, I heard someone stop the door just as I was about to close it. I groaned mentally as it was late and I was too tired to welcome anyone, but what can I do?
"I'm sorry I'm late, but I saw the vintage coffee table online you posted a few days ago,"
the man said. I stepped back to let him in as I checked out the tattoos on his arm. They were mysterious and different. I walked him over to the living room and the coffee table. The man had a strange aura. I felt weird around him, but maybe my mind was playing tricks on me because I was too exhausted. I was lost in my thoughts when he suddenly dropped down on one knee and rubbed the top surface of the table as if he were impressed by the craftsmanship. I mean, it was just a coffee table, but fine. He looked back at me and said,
"Your ad has it priced at $100? Is that right?"
"Well, yeah, I had so much stuff in my place, so I had to clear everything out," I said humbly. He stood up and handed me the $100, with most of the $20 bills being covered in what looked like blood. "What?" My eyes widened. I knew the man was weird, but at that point, he was really giving me the creeps. I felt unsafe in my own home when I watched him worship the coffee table as if it were owned by a celebrity or something. I wanted him to go as soon as possible so I could pass out. He walked over to the kitchen counter for one of the bottles of water I had left out for guests. He was moving freely as if it was his own house. I shrugged, thinking that the dude had no manners, but what he said next surprised me the most.
I see you're all set for your move to Denver.
I froze and turned to him, completely in shock, and tried to say calmly, Excuse me, but how did you know I was moving to Denver? He looked over at me with a somewhat funny look on his face, as if I were crazy or he had known me for a long time.
I was speaking with the realtor down in the lobby as he was walking out,
he said as a matter of fact. Whatever. I was not having him in my house anymore. I placed the money on top of the boxes nearest the window and walked him to the door. Okay, I'd like to thank you for coming for the table, but I gotta ask you to leave now, I said. Just before he walked into the hallway, he turned around and said,
I hope I didn't spook you, but I have been watching this place on the market for some time now, and I do know all the realtors in this area.
I rolled my eyes internally at his audacity, as if he hadn't made me uncomfortable in the minutes of just a meeting. While visiting different places, I had encounters with a lot of people. I could tell their intentions right away. That man was oddly mysterious. At least I knew he wasn't friendly, and I was not a people pleaser at all. Maybe I was overreacting, but I couldn't care less. Thank you, and I hope you have a safe night, I said, and closed the door just before he got a chance to reply. At that moment, I was just happy to get him out of my space before the guy could get a chance to try anything. I mean, who knew? He could be a robber or a murderer or something. I chuckled dryly at my own thoughts, but I knew it was better to be safe than sorry. I sighed and walked towards my bedroom. I plopped on my bed and went over everything that happened the whole day. I was happy as I sold out of a lot of things, but that man was creepy. I shrugged off my thoughts and went to sleep, as I was too tired to do anything more. Maybe if I had pondered my thoughts, I could have stopped what was going to happen. Before moving out, I invited my friends to my place for our usual farewell party. I thought I would tell them about the strange man, but it completely slipped my mind by that point. We were too lost in the memories and nostalgia. Of course, I was going to miss these moments a lot, but I was also excited for what life had in store for me. But if I had known, I never would have thought about it. A few weeks later, after I made my move to my new place, I decided to head out for a few things for the house. I didn't expect it, but I was adjusting really quickly. I went to the store and bought my necessities. As I was picking up my last few cans out of my cart, I pulled out my credit card to pay. I looked over at the cashier as he was struggling to use the credit card on the machine. After a few moments, he said, "Sorry, sir, it looks like this card's been declined. Is there another card you'd like to try?" Before I could do anything, I saw the same strange man who I sold my table to reach out with cash, paying the cashier the payment I owed. What was he doing in this city? Was I hallucinating? Did he follow me here? I knew he was not a safe man. I realized then that he had stalked me all this way. As I was going to pretend to decline politely, he said,
"Don't worry, buddy. It's on me."
That made me so angry that I pushed his hand away as he was reaching over the counter. "How did you know I was here? Are you stalking me now, you creep?" People in the market started to stare at us as my voice got louder and the anger was about to come out. Honestly, I was too pissed off to care at that point. I wanted to know what the hell he wanted from me. Why was he following me around? I snatched my credit card from the cashier and flipped the guy off and walked out of the market. I almost knocked the officer over as I was leaving. "Hey buddy, is there a problem?" the officer asked me. "Yeah, this man here is stalking me," I said, pointing at the stalker. I told the officer everything about how I was being stalked by this psycho from Los Angeles. He listened to me patiently and then walked over to the man, pulling him to the side. He heard his side of the story. I could see him acting innocent, which made me want to punch him. I don't know why I was so angry. 5 minutes later, the officer walked back over to me and said, "I had a talk with him and the cashier, and they told me he was just being courteous by paying for your food knowing you didn't have any money, and then you went off on him." I could see he was disappointed, as if I was making a scene out of nowhere. I looked back at him, pointing at the man in the store. "This man, is nothing but a stalker who followed me all the way here from Los Angeles. I tried to explain it to him, but he looked back into the store and saw everyone disturbed. He tried to say something else, but I didn't listen at that point. The expression on his face was all I needed, and he didn't sound too pleasant when he said, "All right, look, I don't know what happened there, okay? But I hope you're not going to be a problem here in our city." I looked up at him in shock. How could he not do anything about it? A lot of people were giving me looks like I was crazy, but if they only knew. I realized if I said anything else, he would put me behind bars. I didn't want that, so I shut my mouth. I looked towards the man and gave him a hard glare, and then left the store in frustration and anger. The ride home was anything but pleasant. My thoughts continued to go over everything that took place at the market. I was sure that was not a coincidence. How was it possible for a man who purchased furniture from me in LA to meet me in Denver? I just couldn't handle those tangled thoughts at all. I went home and locked everything, just in case. I had the uneasy sense that he might show up at my door again. I wanted to have a peaceful start, but he was making it impossible for me. Later that night, I called back home in hopes to talk with a few of my friends. I wanted to tell them about the weird man. I knew I was excited to resume my journey, but it didn't stop me from missing my friends. I knew that moving places would come with consequences. I could not meet them as much as I used to, but I was pretty much used to it. As I was trying to call one of my friends, I happened to look over at my nightstand. It was slightly open, and I noticed my handgun was missing. Did I put it somewhere else? I couldn't remember, but I wanted to find it before I could go to sleep. A lot of things had happened that day, and I just wanted it to end. I searched through my closet, under the couches, and the bed. I'd searched all over the house and looked in the car 3 times, but there was no sign of the gun, nor could I remember where I placed it. After searching for a long time, I was too tired to continue. I had a sudden thought that made me feel a little bit better. I gave up looking since I assumed that maybe I had placed it in one of the moving boxes in the spare bedroom, so I decided to look for it the next day. I just needed to chat with my buddies and get some rest in that moment. Most of my friends were either unavailable or it led to voicemails when I tried to contact them. That was out of the ordinary, and I was growing concerned. I would have started my car and driven to their house, but I was too far away. Otherwise, I would have gotten peace of mind. What could I do, though? It was unusual for them not to respond to my calls despite the fact that I had left over a dozen voicemails. No matter how busy they were, it had never happened before. They would text me back and say they'd get back to me later. I was concerned about the lack of contact because none of them replied. I made one more attempt to get in touch with Jack. "Hey Jack, it's me again. Please hit me back. I got something crazy to tell you. Bye." The friend I was closest to was Jack. We grew up very much side by side. I wanted to tell him about the situation because we had always communicated openly, but his limited reach had caused me to forget about it. More than ever, I feared for the safety of my hometown and my friends. With all these thoughts, I started getting a headache, and before I knew it, I was holding my phone as I drifted off to sleep. At 3 a.m. that morning, I got a knock on my bedroom window. I groaned and sat up. That wasn't possible. I lived on the 18th floor of this high-rise condo. Maybe I was dreaming, but I was going to sleep again, when suddenly I heard another knock. I went completely still, this sleep trying to wash off of me. My heart was beating fast. Was it the stalker? I walked over slowly and slid the curtain sideways, but there was nothing. I sighed and went back to bed, but I could hear the knocks at my window throughout the night. I was shaking so hard that I shut my eyes tightly, hoping it would stop soon. Who knew there was a big surprise waiting for me? After a few moments, I heard someone roaming around in my kitchen. I lived alone, and I had locked everything, so how? I slowly got out of bed. Whoever it was, I had to confront it. Not having anything to protect myself with, I slowly crept towards the spare room, making sure nobody would catch me. I took another look in one of the boxes and saw my gun lying on the bookshelf. I had to do something. Even if it was to kill that stalker, I could not go barehanded. Who knew if this psycho had anything with him? I regret not doing anything about him sooner. With shaking hands, I gripped the gun hard. I crept into the room just before I walked into the kitchen. I checked my gun and took the safety off. As I walked into the kitchen, I heard the person stop and turn around. Both of us could see each other's motions in the shadows. I decided I had to do something before he could get the chance to do anything. With shaky hands, I fired at him multiple times, striking him in the chest and head. I turned on the lights and saw Jack lying on the floor, dead. My eyes widened, and the gun dropped from my hands. Jack? What was he doing here? I didn't realize tears were streaming from my face. I had seen my best friend lying on the floor, dead. After several moments, when shock started to finally wear off, I ran towards him and touched him. It was real. Jack was dead. I went numb. How could he? Our whole life together ran before me in a flash. Suddenly, I heard more noise. I forced myself to turn around and saw a group of armed men charging into the room. I was astonished. I felt them tackle me to the floor. The same officer from before stepped over me with a smile on his face. What was happening? I couldn't understand. I felt like it was some kind of sick joke, or I at least hoped it was.
I finally caught you, you bastard. You're going down for the murder of 12 innocent victims, including your friend lying there on your kitchen floor,
the officer said. I killed Jack. What? No! Nonsense! I could never do that in my lifetime. What? I never killed anybody! I never did any such thing! I yelled as I could feel the tears wetting my face. Suddenly, everything made sense. That stalker, he did everything. You need to search for the stalker! Back at the market! He's the man you want! Get off of me! I yelled as the officers gripped me hard and handcuffed me. I kept screaming, but to no avail. The last thing I saw was the officer's cold face as he said,
"Get him out of my sight! I'll make sure you get the death penalty for this, you murderer!"